Hey guys, it is me, the former film student, back today with another video, and today I'm going to be reviewing I'm Thinking of Ending Things. So, I'm Thinking of Ending Things is a new psychological thriller drama film. It stars Jesse Buckley, Jesse Plemons, Toni Collette, and David Thewlis. It is a very self-contained small film, and it is written and directed by Charlie Kaufman. Now, if you guys don't know, Charlie Kaufman is my favorite screenwriter. My favorite film of his is Synecdoche, New York. I absolutely love that film. I loved all of his films, to be honest. Eternal Sunshine was my introduction to him, and I have a poster of that movie. And when I was at college, I had my dorms and any apartment that I lived in, I always had that poster up. I think it's such a brilliant movie, and honestly, all of the movies that he's written, whether it's adaptation, being John Malkovich, Anomalisa, Synecdoche, Eternal Sunshine, I really loved all of his movies. They have so many layers to them. They have so much depth, and I always just look forward to what this guy has to offer. He has such a unique perspective and a unique way of writing, and he never settles for just telling a boring, bland film. He always has a very creative and interesting way of telling a story, and I always appreciate that. So I was very excited for this movie, and I have to say, I was not disappointed in the slightest. I had very high expectations going into this movie, especially in a year that has had so few recent releases, and a lot of the films that I was looking forward to unfortunately got pushed due to COVID-19 and the quarantine and all that stuff. So I was really excited that a movie like this, because it was on Netflix, did not get delayed, did not get pushed, and I was looking forward to the release. I watched it the day that it got released, and like I said, I was not disappointed in the slightest, and I will go on the record as saying this is my favorite film of 2020 so far, and although there isn't a lot of competition, I think even if there was, this would still be in my top 5 because I had such a blast watching this movie, and I'm going to tell you why right now. This movie has so many things to offer. You heard me mention how all of Charlie Kaufman's screenplays have so many layers and so much depth and subtext to them, and this film is no exception. This is a very weird, very strange film, and I think that's going to turn a lot of people off. I think a lot of people are going to be put off by that because this is not like any movie I've seen before. It is very unique, it's very original, it's very creative, and I think a lot of people are not going to take kindly to a lot of the choices made in this film. I also think that the marketing was not done well. It's marketed as a horror film, and I really don't think it is. I do think it has a lot of things to do with existential horror, but as far as a straight up horror film, something that you'd see in a mainstream film, a Blumhouse film per se, um, it's very, very different from that. And it was sort of marketed poorly. I think this should have been marketed more as a psychological drama film because it definitely has a lot of elements of horror in it. Like I said, more so leaning towards existential horror and less like, ooh, ghosts and scary stuff. It's more of the more you think about it, the more you think of the concepts that are explored in this film, the more terrifying it gets. And I, for one, the more I thought about this movie for days after initially watching it, I think I saw it 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and I have not been able to stop thinking about this movie. But the more I think about it, the more it messes with my head and it makes me uncomfortable and it sort of gets under your skin. And it heavily deals with themes of loneliness and what the idea and the concept of loneliness can do to a person. And I think that's such a terrifying concept because although I'm someone who values my alone time, I think I fear the idea of ending up alone. I'm someone who fears the idea of loneliness very heavily and the idea of just having nobody in your life. It's something that, is a very terrifying concept to me. I'm someone who very much values, companionship, friendship, family, and stuff like that. So when it comes to a concept like loneliness and just having nobody, it's very terrifying to me personally. And I think a lot of people went into this movie expecting it to be sort of a very conventional horror film, a lot of conventional scares and stuff like that. I don't think that they were expecting a movie to have, existential horror be the main forefront of it. So I can understand why someone would not like this movie. I have no problem with someone absolutely hating this movie. This is one of those movies very similar to The Lighthouse, which was my favorite film of 2019, that I really could totally understand someone hating every moment of this movie. It's very slow paced, it's a very slow burn, and a lot of people are going to consider the ending to be a waste of time and to not pay off all the stuff that the rest of the film set up. Like, again, I totally understand that, and films are very subjective, especially a film like this that is so unique and so original and very unlike something, you've seen before in a movie. But for me, it really worked on so many different levels. For starters, the cinematography is absolutely spectacular. I think there are so many great and gorgeously well filmed shots in this movie from a composition standpoint and a lighting standpoint. I also think the performances across the board are spectacular. Jesse Plemons is always good. I've been following his career ever since Friday Night Lights. He never disappoints. He's phenomenal in shows like Breaking Bad, but he's also really, really great in this movie. David Thewlis and Toni Collette, who play Jesse Plemons' parents in the film, are also very, very good. Toni Collette is already getting Oscar buzz as Best Supporting Actress for her role in this movie, and although she's not nearly as good in this film as she was in Hereditary, I really would not mind her getting nominated and winning for Best Supporting Actress. But the star of the film is Jessie Buckley as the protagonist of the film. She is absolutely spectacular in every scene in this movie, whether it's a long-winded monologue or just dialogue scenes inside a car. She just takes every scene and puts her own unique spin on it and just takes every chance and every opportunity she has in this movie to give a stellar performance. I would really like to see her get nominated for Best Actress at the Oscars. Whether it happens or not, I guess, is to be seen, but I really think that she did a phenomenal job in this movie. As far as every other technical aspect, the editing, the sound mixing, sound design, and all that stuff, I all thought it was spectacular. I think Charlie Kaufman did a wonderful job directing this movie. He has such a strong directorial influence on his films, and although he doesn't have a very distinct style when it comes to filmmaking, like a David Fincher or like a Wes Anderson, whenever I'm watching his films, I not only feel his personality through the screenplay and the writing aspect, but also just through the directing. You can definitely feel that this is a Charlie Kaufman film, and although it's not heavily stylistic or anything like that, I still felt like I was watching a Kaufman film. So the only issues that I had with this movie came in the third act, and it was nothing story-wise. I think everything story-wise worked really well for me. It was more so just as much as I loved the cinematography and the editing, there was a couple editing choices and cinematography choices, especially in the third act, where I was just not fully on board with them. There were a couple edits that I understand what they were going for, but I feel like they just cut just a hair too quick, and there was a couple shots inside the car in the third act that I thought were just a little too overly dark, and I just wish they were lit just a little bit more. They were just a little too dark, and that was really it. But if a couple editing choices and a couple scenes that were a little underlit, and it was probably intentionally done to add to the atmosphere of the scene, but just because they didn't work for me doesn't mean they're not going to work for you guys. But if a couple of minor flaws in the film, like a couple lighting choices and editing choices, are my biggest flaw for the film, then consider me a satisfied viewer. I really loved everything about this movie. The story, the technical aspects, the directing, the performances, everything about this movie I absolutely loved. It is by far my favorite film of 2020 so far, and I'm going to be giving this film a 9 out of 10. A 9 out of 10 is a score that I rarely give. It's just as rare as a 10 out of 10 for me. I absolutely loved this movie. There was so very few things that I disliked about it. It's a film that I have a hard time recommending to people just because I think a lot of people are not going to take kindly to it. But someone like myself, it is just the perfect movie for me, and it just worked on pretty much every level. So that's all I'm going to say about this movie. If you guys have seen it, let me know what you think about it down in the comments. I'd love to create a dialogue with you guys and discuss it. I know I'm in a couple of Facebook groups that talk about films, and I've already had a few discussions with people about it. And again, like I said, I'm very open to discussing this film. Like I said, I understand why someone would hate this movie, but for me, I absolutely loved it, and I cannot wait to watch it again and to just sort of, peel back some more layers that I didn't catch in the first time and notice little things that, maybe I missed on my first viewing. It's definitely a film that I think warrants a rewatch, which already to me bumps it up a couple levels, because a movie that warrants a second watch and has rewatchability, I think is elevated above a movie that maybe is really great, but I'm only ever going to watch it once. So that's all I have to say for today. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you liked the video, make sure to click the like button. Subscribe to me if you want to see more from me. Make sure to click the notification so you guys get notified when I post a new video. I have another movie review coming up. I'm going to be talking about Christopher Nolan's Tenet, as well as working on a very long video essay on one of my favorite TV shows of all time, which I'm really excited about. I'm currently rewatching it and compiling my notes together and just, taking it all in, watching interviews with the actors and the showrunners showrunners and all that stuff. So I'm really excited to release that video to you guys when it's finished. Also, October's coming up, so I have a couple things planned for that. So keep a lookout for that. Yeah, so that's all for today, guys. I will see you next time. See you later.